Rebbe, why are you so late to the Beit Midrash this morning?
I can't believe what I just read hot off the press. It's this case where this woman named Rachel Rubenstein is in a self-driving car and it swerves and hits Mr. Shimon Shalom, severely damaging him. And it was in order to hit a jaywalker and possibly kill him. So, who do you guys think is liable?
Well, first, does anyone know the halachic status of a self-driving car?
Yes, I just found this amazing Chuvas Harosh, response 100, Siman Hey, where he says that if someone's horse damages while they are riding it, the rider is
Exempt, because it's indirect.
No, that's not right.
But wouldn't it be considered like a case of someone who shoots arrows and damages someone unintentionally?
Good point, no, but it says in Bava Kama 17b that the rider of the horse would be considered liable because the horse and the rider are considered one entity. So, therefore, it is a direct action and not grama, and the Rush proves this from the Gemara in Bava Kama 70b, where it says that a horse that damages with its saddle on, the owner is liable to pay.
But you still haven't answered my question. What is the halachic status of a car?
Well, Rav Ovadia Yosef in Volume 5, Siman 16, says that in Shuvas Yichavei Dat, he cites the Rush and says that the same ruling applies to a car. In addition, the Pitrei Choshen says in Nezikin chapter 3 that the one who presses a gas pedal in the car is setting a series of actions and reactions into motion and therefore is directly liable.
So, does this mean that if someone else damages someone while driving their car, they are directly liable?
Yes.
Oh, so does that mean that Rachel's at fault?
Well, not necessarily, because the car company is technically the one controlling it from afar.
Yeah, Rebbe's right. I learned in Bava Kama 17b, the Chachamim's opinion is that an owner of an animal who kicks up pebbles through its normal course of action is only chayav chatzi nezek, half damages. This is because the animal and the owner are no longer in control of the pebble once it's in the air. So our case is similar, but in our case, the car company is in complete control of the pebble or the car the entire time. So in our case, even the Chachamim would agree that the car company should pay full damages or nezek shalom.
Okay, so are you saying that the car company is fully liable?
Yeah.
Also, you can make the argument that Rachel was passive.
What do you mean?
Well, it says in Gemara Sanhedrin 74b that Esther Amalka had prohibited relations with Achashverosh and is not liable.
Why not?
Well, in Talmud, in Sehadri 72b, it says that someone should die before allowing themselves to be defiled. So the Gemara continues and says that Esther would not be liable for the sinful act that she was, because she was karka olam, which means she was passive.
Oh, so I see what you're saying. So same here, Rachel is not liable to pay for damages because she was passive in her situation as if she was not in control of the car.
Exactly.
Oh, wait, look here. I found in Tosfot 74b, and it says that if someone is told that they must choose to be killed or be thrown on a baby, which will for sure kill it, the person can choose to be thrown on the baby, and in this specific case, would not be liable for murder since it's his weight that's causing the murder, not his own action.
Oh, so I see. It's his weight that's killing the baby and not his own action. So therefore, he would not be liable for murder.
Yeah, and in our case, we could say that it is as if the car company threw Rachel onto Shimon Shalom, and it wasn't her action, rather her weight that caused the damage.
And, even more so, her weight did not injure Mr. Shalom, but rather the weight of the car did. So she is completely not liable.
So does that mean that the car company's liable?
Yes, exactly.
But this brings up another question. Was it right for the car company to injure Shimon Shalom instead of the jaywalker?
Well, that's a good question. But there's a Chazon Ish in Sanhedrin 25 that builds off of a very nice Yerushalmi in Trumot at the end of Parak 8. Yerushalmi states that the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that says that if enemies single out an individual to be handed over to death, or they will kill a group, the group may give over the individual for death to save everyone else. The Chazon Ish extrapolates from this that a person is able to divert a missile from killing 5 people to killing 1 person, and it would not be considered murder, but rather it's considered like a life-saving act. And we can say in our case that what the car company did was a life-saving act because they avoided killing the jaywalker and only injured Mr. Shalom.
So are you saying that what the car company did was correct?
No, not necessarily. The Tzitz Eliezer says in volume 15, Siman 70, that the car case is not comparable to the Chazon Ish's missile case. This is because, as we explained earlier, the Yechavei Dat and Pitrei Choshen say that a car damaging is a direct action, while diverting a missile is indirect. So therefore, the car company was wrong to swerve into Mr. Shalom.
But you're only injuring Mr. Shalom, not killing him.
Yeah, but there's a discussion whether one must put themselves in a life-threatening situation to save someone else. The Kesef Mishnah, end of Hilchos Rotzeach, chapter 1, holds that one must put themselves in potential risk in order to save one who is in definite risk. However, the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah do not bring down the Kesef Mishnah as legitimate ruling of the practical halacha.
Oh, yeah, and the Sma Choshen Mishpat, Siman 426, explains that the reason they omitted the Kesef Mishnah is because they rule that one does not have to put themselves in a position of potential danger to save another's life. The Mishnah Berurah, Siman 319, also holds the same way. Also, in Yachave Das rules in volume 3, Siman 84, that one cannot put themselves in more than a 50% risk of death in order to save someone else's life. So, when the car company swerves and seriously injures Mr. Shalom, as mentioned in our case, they can presumably put him in a higher than 50% risk of danger. And based on what I just said, there was no obligation for Mr. Shalom to put himself in that situation, nor may the car company put Mr. Shalom in that situation. Therefore, what the car company did was wrong in swerving away from the jaywalker.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I can see that. But then there's even another proof showing that the car company is liable. Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein says in Chasuke Chemed in Bava Kama, Daf 17b, where he was posed with an almost identical case to the one in this newspaper, but it involves swerving from hitting a jaywalker and hitting a parked car. Rabbi Zilberstein rules that one is obligated to swerve and hit the parked car, and that since the jaywalker was violating the law, he's thereby negligent, and so he's liable to pay for the damages.
But Rabbi, how does this even pertain to our case?
It doesn't. Rabbi Zilberstein only allows to swerve if it's hitting a parked car, but he would never allow to injure someone else.
So, can we conclude that Beren, to avoid killing the pedestrian, would be the wrong decision according to halacha, and thus the car company would be solely responsible for any damages inflicted on Mr. Shalom?
Yes, and in the future, the car company needs to determine how severely other drivers would be injured before deciding to swerve in order to avoid killing a pedestrian.
Wow, you guys hit the case spot on. Such amazing students.
Thanks so much for participating. Go back to one and use our source. Ready? Let's go.
Great job, guys. I do have some questions because I got a little confused within the argument. You push very strongly for the car company being liable to pay all the damages, but at the same time, you did say that the jaywalker is negligent. So ultimately, how do you balance who's really liable, whether it's the car company or the jaywalker who causes the programming to then cause the car to hit the other car?
So, if I'm not mistaken, you're asking. We said that the jaywalker was negligent, but we also said that the car company is liable for their damages. What we're learning from here is that the car company programs this car to make a decision, and based on halacha and based on Jewish law, we learn that when the car swerves. It's making a decision. It's making a decision that potentially puts the jaywalker's negligence it makes the jaywalker negligence in innocence. I don't know how to say it, but what they're trying to say is that the jaywalker was negligent. So theoretically, the jaywalker could say, well, let's say that the jaywalker was at the scene, and we can say that he's supposed to be liable. Well, he could have said, no, I'm not liable to pay for damages that was caused to the person who was parked, right? Because I was negligent. You should have run me over. I'm negligent. I was negligent. So what we say is even though there's negligence there, the car company is still liable for making that decision based on halacha.
You point out in your written statement, and then you kind of rephrase it here, that based on halacha, you can't kill one person to save the many. And yet at the same time, if they're calling out for a specific person, you can send that person out to save the many. So you took that argument for that the car company is liable, but can you kind of go deeper into why one and not the other? Like, how is it that one is allowed to sacrifice one person to save another, while at the same time you've said that they shouldn't sacrifice one to save another?
So the difference is that it's direct and indirect. So that's what we said also with the Tzitz Eliezer. So the reason is that when you point somebody out and you say, I want this one person, you're doing a direct act. You're saying, I want this person, and it's like you're murdering them because you're saying, I want this specific person. But when you're diverting a missile, it's through an indirect form. So either you, I don't know exactly how you would divert a missile, but obviously you wouldn't take it with your hands and move it over. So that would be a life-saving act, and that would also be indirect rather than direct.
So the pikuach nefesh.
Can we go back to the Rav Zilberstein tshuva that you referenced? Did he specifically in that tshuva say only applies to hitting a parked vehicle? And why can that? My question is, why could you not extend his tshuva to the situation of the vehicle in the next lane that happens to also be moving?
So you're, if I'm not mistaken, you're asking why we can't apply this to something else? Why we can't apply Rabbi Zilberstein's argument to something else? Well, and it's based on halacha. There's first of all, Masechet is like a web, so of course you can stretch out Gemara and Talmud and apply it to different places. But the thing with this specific case is that there's something called mamon, right, which is property, I guess you can say money, property, and then there's something else that is there's a person inside. It's already now you're damaging a person. There's a difference when you damage someone's mamon, someone's property, and there was when you damage someone himself. When you're damaging someone himself, there's it's almost hard to be repayment. I don't want to get into too much detail, but there is also there's 5 damages that's not really pertaining to our case, but it gets more complicated when you damage a person rather than damaging mamon. Mamon, you just have to pay nezek.
So the difference is that because Mr. Shalom's in the vehicle, what did Rav Zilberstein, was he specific that only when it's a parked car with nobody in it?
Yes.
Okay. So in this case, because the car that was damaged had a person in it and also happened to not be parked, that additional element of the damage to the human being makes that not applicable.
Right. Like, of course, if there was nobody in the car, of course it would be the correct thing to swerve away, hit the car, and not hit the jaywalker. But our case is different.
If I can address your point, I don't know if this might clarify. You asked about the Talmud Yerushalmi, that's a little bit confusing. So there's 2 opinions. There's the Reish Lakish, who says that if the person is already liable for death penalty, it's not a problem he's already deserving of the death penalty. So they see it as again, like she said, it's an indirect act. So it's almost like a life-saving act because they're giving him over. He already deserves the death penalty. And also there's Rabbi Yochanan, who gives a similar opinion if you think about it, which is that since that person was already singled out, he was already singled out out of the crowd. That person, they said either you hand this guy over or we're going to kill the whole group. So when he singled out that person, the whole group is anyways going to be killed, and he's in that group. So he's already singled out. So they say he's already deserving of the death penalty. The minute they singled him out, he's just like Reish Lakish says. Now he deserves of the death penalty because they're gonna kill all of us plus him.
Reminds me that I forget what the commercial's for. Fennec with her. Anyway, if you know the commercial. Another question, and that was I just want to go. It's almost right back to the beginning. You quoted the Rosh and the rider of the horse being liable, and the horse and the rider as being one entity. So what's the difference between the horse and the rider and the self-driving car and its driver?
So the difference is that we attempted to make a distinction between Rachel and the car company. So for the rush, he says that the person riding the horse, even if the horse is the one that damages, the person riding the horse is liable, right? So in our case, although Rachel is technically the one in the car, the one that's driving the car, or in the case that is leading the horse, right, is the car company, because they set up the program which the car follows. So Rachel had no other way of changing what the car was going to do. At that point, she was listening to her podcast, and there was nothing else she could have done. The car just swerved at that moment, and she had no control over it. So we tried to make a distinction between who was driving the car. Rachel's not the one driving the car. Rather, the car company is the one that made the program, so they're the ones driving the car. So they're the ones who are technically riding the horse in the example of the rush.
Does the Roche make a distinction between a rental horse and a horse driven by its own rider?
A rental horse?
Well, that's essentially what you're saying, is that Ms. Rubenstein, because she didn't make the programming for the horse, for the car, is absolved of responsibility while she's riding in the car. It's hard. I have a hard time seeing how you can make the same claim with, if the Roche didn't distinguish between whether you own the car or not, right? Whether you're the one who raised the horse, essentially. I'm assuming the Roche doesn't. So why would you then be able to say that, well, because Ms. Rubenstein happened to acquire the horse later, but didn't actually raise the horse, so she's not responsible?
That's a beautiful question. Actually, this is
30 seconds.
this is actually brought up in Bava Kama, where it says Bein l'Rav, Bein l'Shmuel. Even if you have a jug and you leave it in Reshut HaRabim and you're hefker, I mean you're ownerless on it, you are still chayav. Even if other people hit it and it rolls down the mountain and someone else trips on it, you're still negligent and you still left it in. You still left it in the Reshut HaRabim. So by you programming that car in a way that has that negligence, you should have planned from beforehand to make sure that a specific case that wouldn't happen. You especially buy an Aliva car for that reason, in order for you not to be in that circumstance where that chas v'chalila will happen, that someone will be injured because of that.
Time is up.
Thank you.